Lethal Company is a fantastic game filled with many monsters that will destroy your run in an instant. The game is constantly being filled with new and exciting content. Here's a guide to every single monster in Lethal Company. First off, you'll encounter monsters both inside and outside of the facilities you are raiding for scraps. Several are highly deadly, and some are just goofy like... Yippee! Or as we would call it, the Yippee! Bug. These little guys have definitely become a fan favorite. These bug-like creatures are cute and harmless, but if you take their scrap, they become very angry and attack, revealing that they're not actually short kings, but actually 5'11 chads. These little yippee bugs like to roam around the map and collect items to take to their nest. They will collect both scrap and equipment that they find on the floor. Once they find something, they will take it back to their nest and enter a guarding mode. This is when they will drop their item and sit around their nest for a few moments. If the bug spots the player while it's guarding its nest, it'll just stare at the player, causing the bug to stay at its nest for a longer duration of time. Staying near them for too long will cause them to attack the player. However, its aggression is only temporary. If the player leaves the loot bug, they will go back to being passive. Attacking the little guy will also cause them to become aggressive. Leaving their sight for around 15 seconds will cause them to become passive again. But if the player that attacked them returns to their line of sight, they will immediately be attacked again. If you steal from its pile, whether he is there or not, he will hunt you down and kill you. Their only way to calm him down is to eliminate him or return the scrap that you rudely stole from them. The Snare Flea, also commonly known as centipedes. They are a large entity that hangs from the ceilings waiting for players to walk underneath them. Once a player does, the Snare Flea will drop down and attach to the player's head, suffocating them. This will also make the player's voice muffled so their fellow delvers cannot hear them well. It will also force you to drop all the items that you're holding, making it very difficult to call for help. The Snare Flea will only let go of the player if they are damaged, the player goes outside, or if the player dies. After the player is killed, they will go back to hanging on the ceiling, waiting for their friends to find them. However, if playing alone, this bug will actually let you go when you're around critical health. This entity is also able to open doors, so if a Snare Flea doesn't successfully attach to the player's head, it will chase after you. To avoid getting attacked, try to keep an eye out on the ceiling or stun it if it falls down. You can also just smack it to death. It only takes 2 hits. A slime is a general creature in quite a few different games. In Lethal Company, it's a blue-green like liquid that is slow and can damage players that happen to get caught within. The slime will follow where the player is located, and if the player leaves the area, it will go back to the player's last known location. So if it sees you leave, good chances are it's waiting for you just around the corner. Strangely enough, the slime will go faster if the player is holding a boombox. This slime can't use doors and is unkillable, so it's best to avoid it and use opposite exits when coming into the facility that it's in. If you want to go inside without worry, place the boombox down and the slime will go towards it and dance on top. The Spore Lizard, also commonly known as puffers. They are shy little dogs with a large mouth. This is one of the few entities that cannot be killed. These little guys are mostly docile and will only hurt the players if they are threatened. When approached, these guys will slowly walk away from the player. If they are cornered, they will release a pink puff of gas from its tail. It doesn't do damage, but it will impair the player's visibility. They can also bite the player if intimidated, but it only does a little bit of damage. These little guys are easily avoidable and are hardly a threat, so you just leave them alone. The Mimic, or the Mask Demons, are rather harmless unless you happen to hold the mask up into your face for too long, causing the mask to attach onto your face, turning you into a walking mimic. Putting the mask on your face is not the only way for these lovely fellows to spawn. They will have a chance to spawn randomly on the map, so be careful and pay attention if your friend is acting strangely. You might happen to turn around a corner and see an unpleasant sight. Once the masked man gets you, it will kill you and turn you into another mimic. One of the main dangers about this is that you can actually teleport the infected player back to the ship, so be careful and pay attention before teleporting your friends back. The Nutcracker. The Nutcrackers are a large wooden man dressed up in a King's Guard outfit with a shotgun. While it's patrolling around, it'll stop in place and scan the area. At this moment, it will pop out its little eye hole, revealing a single eye. When this happens, stand perfectly still and it will not notice you. If it does spot you, it will attack immediately. It will also remember your face for the rest of the match and constantly try to kill you. While its eye is out, this is the point in which the players can actually damage the entity. No other time can the creature take damage, as its wooden capsule prevents it and keeps it safe. If you successfully take it down, the shotgun it's holding is now yours. Don't try to take it out of his hands, by the way. It'll lead to certain death. You wouldn't try to take a gun away from a cop now, would you? When the creature is patrolling, do be careful if you get too close. This can lead to certain death. This creature is easily avoidable due to it taking time to stop and scan the area first, which gives you plenty of time to run away. The Coil Head. The Coil Heads are a rather dangerous entity. They act just like weeping angels. Unfortunately, they look nothing like angels. If anything, they look like Sid's newest evil creation from Toy Story. This creature is quite difficult to deal with in solo runs, but not impossible. These entities cannot be killed, but can be avoided by just looking at them. Just be careful where you're looking at the Coil Head. The part that registers that the player is actually looking at them is its torso and pelvis, not their head or feet. So keep in mind if you look up or down too much while it's near you, as it can kill you instantly. They will also move if line of sight has been broken by a wall or door. A door can stop them for a little bit, but they can still open it. Even though they are unkillable, you can still disable them for a short amount of time using stun grenades. The Butler. The Butler is one of the newer enemies placed in the game. These entities are humanoids wearing a black coat with a bow tie and broom. They do seem decently harmless and quite creepy at the beginning, but if they do get alone with one of your teammates, the entity will put away their broom and pull out a knife and start stabbing you repeatedly. Be careful though, if you kill the Butler, it'll explode into a cloud of mask hornets, or as the players call them, Butler bees. These bees tend to act similarly to circuit bees and will attack the players on sight. It's easier to make sure you are not alone with the Butler and do not kill them. Otherwise, it might give you a more difficult challenge to dodge. And if you do kill him, you'll be able to take his knife and start stabbing other monsters with it. The creepy ghost girl that you see here looks like the twin from The Shining and is not real. If a friend starts saying they see a little girl, start calling them crazy. Clearly there's no monster log for the little girl, so they have to be lying. In all seriousness, she will spawn to the player that is deemed the most paranoid. Looking behind yourself and seeing monsters and dead bodies adds up to your paranoia meter. She will then mess with the player by flickering lights and breathing creepily while giggling at the player. After a while, she will then enter her attack phase, where she will skip towards the player. Once they reach the player, they are instantly dead as their head explodes. Remember, she is not real. It's all in your head. The bunker spiders are a larger version of our friendly little guys we know in real life, and they act similarly as well. As the spider builds its nest, it'll be mostly docile. Just don't get close to it, break, or touch its webs. However, unlike our friendly comrades here on Earth, as soon as the bunker spider finishes its webs, it can attack on sight. He just needs a little snack after working so hard. You can kill him within a few hits. Just be careful, as the bunker spider can kill you within 2 hits as well. So it's better just to avoid them and get as much scrap as possible before they finish their webs. The Bracken, or also known as the Flower Man, is a shadowy tall humanoid with petal-looking tendrils coming out of his back. This creepy fellow quietly stalks the player in an attempt to kill them. These guys can often be found hiding either below or above stairs. They will retreat from the player as soon as they spot them. Be careful and back away slowly and do not make eye contact. If you stare at them for too long, they will become irritated and come and attack you. Once it decides to kill you, it's almost guaranteed to get you. It's far too fast to outrun, and it instantly kills you. So it's better to make sure you just don't stare at them for too long. It's impolite anyways. You can defeat this creature, but only when using a stun gun while your friends whack it down. The Thumper. The Thumper is also commonly referred to as the Crawlers. They have 2 legs and a scary looking mouth. These little guys are actually quite aggressive. However, they are deaf and only detect a player once it sees you. Once it spots someone, it will then yell and charge forward. They move very quickly, but it's easy to lose them around corners. Once they lose line of sight of players, they will search the area in which they last saw you. They are easily avoidable, and even if you get caught, they don't hit as hard as other monsters. They kill you in roughly about 4 hits, which gives you plenty of time to run away and hide around a corner. The Jester. The Jester is the worst enemy for the player to come across. At first, it's just a wind-up box with one hand and two legs, but as soon as the Jester gets close enough to a player, it starts winding up. Once that happens, your run is basically over. As soon as the music stops, the Jester head will pop out and the entity will run at you at high speeds. The Jester will know where every single player is on the map, so don't try to hide from it. The only way to deal with this is by leaving the area. Once all members are outside, it will go back to its roaming stage, and you can safely go back inside. Due to its complex mechanics, it's difficult to deal with. By the point it spawns, you might already have enough loot to end your day without taking a risk for your life again. These are currently all the monsters that can spawn inside. However, there are still many that can spawn outside. The Baboon Hawk. The Baboon Hawk looks like a plucked chicken with a nasty face. These guys hop around on two legs and the tips of their wings. They can also spawn in groups, sometimes making them harder to dodge. The Baboon Hawks will chase behind players trying to get up close. However, if you spot a Baboon Hawk and walk towards it, the hawk will slowly back away. Although, be careful. If there are more hawks than players, they will always take the opportunity to attack. On each map, there is a location in which the Baboon Hawks will make their nests. They will take both dead players and scraps that they may find. This is where you'll find most of the hawks roaming around if they're not stalking a player. It may be useful to take a note where their nest is, just in case a player gets killed with a valuable item. The Earthworm, or more commonly known as the Leviathan, is a humongous worm that waits for players, swallowing them up in one plunge. Once this creature spots a player, the ground will rumble under their feet, and a few seconds later, the Leviathan will jump out of the ground, killing anything in its path. It's possible to avoid the attack. Once you see the dirt particles, you must sprint away out of its radius. Just make sure you have a low enough weight to do so. If you are aware of the Leviathan, the best way to avoid it is by dropping heavy items, just in case you need to run away from its attack. Unfortunately, if a player does get eaten, you can't teleport them back, and any loot and gear that they are holding is now gone. A common occurrence is that the Leviathan will also spawn with the Eyeless Dogs, making it difficult to avoid both creatures at the same time. The Eyeless Dogs. The Eyeless Dogs are a common entity on most moons. These guys look similar to our furry friends, but with a lack of eyes to see. Any player that makes a small sound will attract these beasts, and they will kill the players in a single hit. Another problem is that these guys won't spawn alone, sometimes spawning in groups of 2 or 3. It's difficult to avoid them, but if you crouch and don't make a sound, you'll be safe. This includes speaking, by the way. Just make sure you don't have any items that make sounds in your inventory, such as the radio. If it's still turned on, it can make a small static sound. This also goes for the toy robot and other items that make noises as well. The Old Bird. The Old Birds are a new entity in Lethal Company. These are humanoid-like robots. They are tall with a bright light on its head to spot players with. Some say they are old weapons of war, as they are armed with a gun. They may be aggressive. However, they spawn on the map before the ship even lands and are completely docile. Some would say even forgotten looking. The way the Old Birds activate is rather unique. When the game decides to spawn an entity outside, there's a chance that an Old Bird is picked to be activated instead. Once an Old Bird is activated, it goes into a roaming stage where it searches for the players. This entity can see players from a far distance, and once it spots a player, it'll use its thrusters to get into range. Once within range, it'll begin to look for the player with its headlight at quick speeds. When it has you in its sights, it'll begin to launch missiles at you. It can also launch missiles while it is moving, making it very difficult to dodge. They also have a secondary attack, but it's only if the player is extremely close, in which the Old Bird will instead do melee attacks, such as stomping or grabbing the player. There's also a small chance that the Old Bird will choose to squish, or rather land on top of the player in an attempt to kill them. A way to avoid the chances of the Old Bird's activation is by not taking the power cord too early. The most effective way of dealing with the Old Birds is by stun locking them. You could place a radar booster near an inactive Old Bird and ping it every few moments so it can't move. The Forest Keepers. The Forest Keepers are huge creatures resembling a humanoid tree. These keepers are extremely quick, going the same speed as a sprinting player. They have good eyesight, but no ears, so no need to keep quiet around them. These entities scour the forest for players, and once spotted, they will come after the player, where they will catch you and eat you. The best way of dealing with this entity is making sure you stay out of line of sight, as that is the only way this creature knows where you are. It is possible to teleport the player back back to the ship right before they are eaten, unlike the Leviathan. All of these are monsters that spawn outside during the afternoon and night hours. However, there are some entities that spawn at any point during the day. A few of them are harmless, but some of them can cause damage to the players in unique ways. The Tulip Snake. The Tulip Snake is one of the newer entities. It's a colorful lizard with tulip-like petals extruding off of its face. These little guys won't harm the players, but they can hold onto them and hoist them up into the sky for a short duration. This can cause fall damage, but in some cases it won't. Interestingly enough, if a player is caught by a tulip snake, they can control it just like a jetpack until the creature lets go. Even though they are technically harmless, once a tulip snake spots a player, they will continuously try to latch onto them. One player can even be held up by several tulip snakes at the same time. These little guys are easily killed, as one hit can kill all of them that are attached to a player. So if you don't want to deal with them, you can let them get you and kill them all in one go. The Roaming Locusts. The Roaming Locust is also commonly referred to as the Flies. These guys are harmless entities and spawn on quite a few moons. They are found at all times of day, and when a player runs into their group, they will disperse, making a small noise. The Manticoils. The Manticoils are the pigeons of Lethal Company. They are almost everywhere and will scare the life out of you on occasion. Other than that, they are completely harmless. They have a set of 4 wings and can be found flying in the air or walking on the ground in groups. These little guys will fly into the air if approached or spooked by the player. Unlike the Locust, these guys can actually be killed, but there is no real benefit for doing so other than, being a monster. The Circuit Bees. The Circuit Bees are the most dangerous outside entity. They are also commonly known as bee balls, as their home is a spherical hive. This hive is actually an item that you can take home for money. However, living to do so is extremely difficult, as these bees are very aggressive. Once you get too close to their home, the bees will aggro onto you, shocking you constantly until you get away from them. If a player grabs the ball, then every team member is forfeit to their wrath. To be able to steal their hive, the easiest way is to wait until the end of the run so you can immediately take off once the item is on the ship. If the beehive is too far from the ship, the best way to get it there is to grab the ball, sprint until you can't, and drop the item, then get out of the range of the bees. You can do this multiple times before you die. And if you are still exploring the rest of the moon, you can just leave the ball on the far side of your ship away from its entrance. That is the easiest way to get onto the ship and leave before the bees have the opportunity to kill you. All in all, I'm excited to see new updates come out. In my next video, we'll be covering more about what the actual game has to offer and the lore behind this wonderful indie game. And I'll see you next time. See ya!